Duh. So, okay. Okay. So, yeah. So it's the customs of our inheritance and our customs to actually perform private prosecutions. The whole AG thing came after. Now, what they've done, I think it's since 1955 or 1958, when we came out with the Criminal Code of Canada, they started changing some things around. So, you know, it's basically your duty, obligation, responsibility, and as a customer of the people, your right. Okay? Right, you know, R-I-T-E, right? You know, to be able to hold a private prosecution. Now, so with the indictable offenses, but the AG, like, they got it set up within the criminal code, and it leaves things open for the AG to interfere no matter what. Summary, speedy trial, which is judge alone, and judge and jury. That there shows me that it's statutory. And I think it is. If it's an indictable offense, the AG takes your right away to appeal it if it's wrong. Like say you don't carry the day, and so the judge finds them not guilty, or the jury finds them, and that's jury trial, right? Statutory style, and the jury finds them not guilty. I think the AG has the right not to allow you to appeal the decision, which in itself, if it was a common law court of record trial by jury, well, yeah, no, because the jury is God. It's the ones of this land, and that is God. That is the creator of the government. And so I could see that. No, there is no appeal. That's final say. But if it's statutory by nature jury trial, where the judge can still control the jury, then it should be open for appeal, and the AG can stop you and has an argument, or a basic argument, through the criminal code to make sure that you can't appeal the decision if it's an indictable. Summary, yes, you can appeal the decision, but then again, either way, the AG, through the criminal code, and it's a convolution of the criminal code. There are ways to simplify this, because I think it's very, very important within the free world on this land that we keep the private prosecutions. It's very, very important to keep the private prosecutions, because this is the only way that a man or woman can find remedy when you've got somebody. You got some evildoer, some wrongdoer, some tortfeasor within our public service, which we call government, this de facto government, this corporate body, the corporate body politic, doing wrong. How are they to be held to account if you take that away from the people? So they've been hiding the trial by jury that falls under the common law, court of record. They've been hiding that from the people and trying to keep people from doing that. And now they're making it so the AG can interfere with your private prosecution. Listen, when you swear out the information before the justice, and you bring forth the merits of the case, whether it's a preliminary hearing or whatever, and you have witnesses and you have like verifiable testimony, or other things like written form, pictures, or and you convince the justice that there is definitely a case here that needs to be settled. The AG shouldn't be allowed to interfere with shit, because he's the public servant. All right, he's supposed to operate on the king's behalf for certain things with the king. So I imagine treason would be a good one for an AG. If you have a public servant that's sworn an oath, or someone who has sworn an oath, you know, to the monarch, to the king or queen, this Mr. and Mrs. Crown or whatever, yeah, treason. I could see treason being up the AG's alley, but you know, maybe a few other things. But the rest should be held by private prosecution. Absolutely. And then that also leads into citizens' arrests, because everyone is a peace officer on this land. Everyone has the duty and responsibility and obligation to keep the peace. That's we are the land of mankind here. That's what we do. We have a duty, responsibility, and obligation to our fellow man, but not our creation. We can end our creation at any time we wish, which is why I'm trying to explain to my cousins in Alberta and Saskatchewan, whomever, whichever province you live in, guys, you have no standing till you create a constitution. Create the articles. Just create the articles. Everyone has a right to a trial by jury, court or record that only falls under the common law. Everyone has a right to free speech. You know? Everyone has the right to access public roads. Everyone has the right to come in and out of the borders freely. Everyone has a right, right? Our creation, public servants, these monstrosities that we have allowed to create themselves, are like, this is totalitarianism, man. You know, they're all dictating, telling you that they're dictating because they have a right, because they are your co-parent. No harm, no loss. No harm, no foul. No victim, no crime. That is the foundation of this land. All right. So, yeah, so like if you're going to hold a private prosecution, now I'm sure if you and I were going through this and you had a private prosecution on or I had one on you, I'm sure the AG wouldn't give a shit and allow us just to go have it out at court. But, you know, because this man-child there and those who fill that position and those positions believe that they are above the law and that they are rulers rather than servants. Therefore, there are political gangs, there are punishment careers. Like, just look at Pontius Pilate. Okay, when they had Jesus in court, okay, now Jesus didn't say a word, okay? Oh, he didn't say a word. He made no statements. Whenever they asked him a question, he always answered with a question because they had no authority over him. He stood as a man. If you ever want to see how a man stands at court, read the Gospels on how the Lord stood in court, or stood at court. He was chained. He was caged. He was kept. The whole court was illegal of the day. If you do any kind of study on Roman history and such of the day. But anyways, Pontius Pilate, the governor, you know, the one with the title of nobility, he knew he had no, there was no guilt. There was nothing. They had nothing on this man and the Son of Man, right? And but the problem was, he seen how upset the mobs were. The mobs, you know, Antifa, the mobs. He seen how upset they were, and so he was trying to gain political points, you know, through favor of the people to further his career. And he didn't further his career. And in fact, it blew up in his face. But this is what happens with with these guys, these AGs and so on and so forth. I mean, look what happened to the the AG, they're the federal AG, you know. Pfft, I entitled you, now I disentitle you. And that's what I keep telling everybody. Those are entitlements. They can be granted and they can be taken away. My title is man, but you may address me as Al. All right? What's your address? Al. You may address me as Al. All right? Where do you live? Right here, man. I'm always here. Right? Now, if you wish to ask me where my home is, I will give you the street address. And the reason I'll give you the street address is because my street address is not part of the public store. Therefore, you have no authority or jurisdiction over it. It's my castle. It's my castle. This is my domestic jurisdiction. And you are alien to my domestic jurisdiction. I set out the laws for my domestic jurisdiction. And if I cause no harm, loss, or injury to my fellow man within my own borders, which is the common law, which is the basis of the laws of my domestic jurisdiction, then you stay the fuck out. The rain can come through the roof, the wind can blow through the windows, but God forbid it, the king and their horsemen cross this threshold. This is my castle. Alright, so I'm off again. But yeah, they're the monstrosities here, these institutions that we allowed to be created, that we created and allowed to be created by our creation, they've turned into monsters, and they're overstepping on everybody because they don't identify, they don't see those of mankind. They only see the person that they wish to see, that they have authority over through the color of law within an enactment. Okay? They can only see the legal person. And that's all they wish to see, and therefore they must fucking do, well, we're not harming mankind. Well, yeah, you are, because there's a man behind every person. There's those of mankind behind every person. And yeah, they are. Okay, so getting back to private prosecutions. So actually, yeah, it's more of our right, R-I-T-E, and our duty, responsibility, and obligation to hold private prosecutions than it is for an AG's office, which is fairly still modern and compared to the timeline of the prosecutions. So, and being a common law land, you know, we have the R-I-G-H-T and the R-I-T-E to W-R-I-T-E those who wish to be noticed of our R-I-G-H-T and our R-I-T-E. There we go. All right. Okay, so basically they've convoluted it a bit in the criminal code, and it should be changed. And the judiciary in this land, or on this land, has there's been discussions amongst those each man and woman within the judiciary about getting this straightened out, because, like I say, like, you know, listen, man, if it passes a smell test, that's what the justice is for. You're bringing these charges up, you're swearing out information before justice, and you're showing them what's been going on. If that's the smell test, okay, so he's the guardian to the, or she is the guardian to that public building for you to hold that private prosecution. And so if it passes the smell test, then the AG shouldn't have any right to interfere with your case whatsoever. Period. But they like to keep their nose in everything, and like I say, they're holding an office. They've been entitled. Okay, they hold this title of AG. Now that could screw up their career in the future, and they could get pressurized. I mean, you're just talking about a man or woman like anybody else. They can be extorted. They can be pressurized. They can be you know, mentally stressed out from those who created that office, or those, you know, of higher title. They could be set up. They could be besmirched. They could be lambasted. And so there's a lot of fear within that man or woman also that stands as an AG. And I'm sure there's a lot of fear with the justice as well. When you're coming against, say, a man or woman within the government, one of those persons in government, but yet, at the same time, it is, besides holding a court of record, trial by jury on those guys, you're going to get your ass kicked just for trying. They'll throw you out of court. It's just ridiculous what's going on. But at least that's our other avenue to keep our public servants, okay, those who act as public servants, in some kind of honesty within their enactment of the description, the mandate of their office. So I don't wish to discourage anybody from private prosecution, and I think it should come back to normal, and like I say, anytime you've had a law firm act as a prosecutor against you, that also is a private prosecution where an agency or society or an organ has used, I believe the CRA likes to use law firms to do private prosecution on you to force you to act as a taxpayer under the Income Tax Act. But we won't go there. But that's just one example. I mean, it's used constantly. The establishment, the organs and societies do private prosecutions all the time, and people think it's all the crown, But the AG kind of, that's the one who can run interference for the establishment. But the problem is we've gone full retard in this country, and all the common sense rules don't apply. My personal opinion, my expressed opinion, my freely expressed opinion, my inalienable right to freely express my opinion is this. Each father of each young lady should do a tort, go to court and do a tort. The mental abuse on these kids, you know what? It could, what just happened to them could change their whole future into something that could have been great. Where they imagine and they do, and I mean, we could be talking about the next woman that creates the biggest benefit for mankind if she wasn't allowed to be mentally abused and bullied and lambasted and slandered in public the way she was within that school. And who do these teachers think they are? You can't attend Remembrance Day ceremony because the school is? I don't think so. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, those public schools were built for the kids. And the kids have a right, R-I-G-H-T, and an R-I-T-E, to go and W-R-I-T-E at that school building. And you, person, you teacher, you principal, you school board, you're all entitled to your position, and with that entitlement, you have a mandate, a responsibility, a duty, and an obligation to those kids. And to the authors of those kids, that would be father and mother. These kids are not legal persons. They're not your children. And they don't have to be seen as a child. They don't have to be seen as that person. That's a young man, a young woman, or a man young, or a woman young, that is authored by their father, and you have a duty, responsibility, and obligation to that father, that mother, and that young man or that young woman to run within your mandate and cause no harm, loss, or injury, which that principal and teachers have apparently done, at least presumably done. And I think it's time to start standing up. I mean, the legal society has pretty much taken over. Like, they've turned us into a big business. The reason you feel like chattel is because the monstrosity of these institutions and this legal society have pretty much taken over our public buildings, and that we have a right to access, that the public has a right to access. And I don't see anywhere where the legal society has a right to access. I don't know, show me the law. Unscroll it and show it to me. The legal society does own all public buildings that act as courthouses, and that the public only has a privilege to enter said building. Show me that. Anyways, okay, well, I hope I helped out a little bit on the private prosecution, but I think everybody should do it, and everybody just look for the criminal codes. I don't have time right now to go through the criminal code and throw all the different acts, but like, look, man, it's a basic study. You got Google. Do a basic study on it, and yeah, learn how to run down get a hold of a JP and do an information. And like I say, there is a place for lawyers. There is a place for counsel, and I like to refer to it as co-counsel. And so co-counsel, hire some co-counsel. Like a lot of lawyers and that in firms will not operate as co-counsel for you. They won't, and they have the right to refuse service. Unless, of course, it's that thing, whatever that person was on the coast that took those poor women to that human rights court, which was totally ridiculous. Shouldn't have been allowed, shouldn't have been accepted, and yeah, no. And I hope those women take the judgments that they got from the human rights court and take that thing to court, because that's definitely a tort, and go ahead and sue that person for whatever it was that person wished to sue them for. And I'd say they got a pretty good case, and I thought it was only a couple or something. I hear it's 6 or 8 women that this thing took to court. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to be throwing this up on BitChute as well. I see Google's changing its mandate, and if something doesn't look like it's... I guess they went from... they used to be a platform, for YouTube, like for us, like for YouTube. Now it looks like they want only things that, they can just get rid of you for whatever reason. I guess now they're a publisher is what I'm saying. So they went from a platform holder to a publisher. So I also, really, guys, you guys that have been screwed around on YouTube and such, and Twitter, if these guys are not platforms but now publishers and acting as platforms, that's defrauding the public. And I would take a look into that, about maybe private prosecution. Maybe there's private prosecution there for a million different people, a million different court cases that they would have to answer. Maybe there's a tort there, maybe there's just a legal base, old-fashioned legal case. But yeah, it's maybe it's time to start holding these guys accountable. And what else are we going to do? But yeah, there's some other ideas with the establishment wanting to charge people way too much money for private. They haven't done it yet, but I don't think they should be allowed to, because it's our right and our right to swear out information. These corporations have no rights. No institution has a right. No society has a right. They only have certain rights afforded to the person that they were created by their creator. And mankind is the creator of governments and institutions, and corporations, and therefore they can only be afforded certain rights. And what we can afford them, we can also unafford them. That takeaway. So I hope this kind of helps enlighten on private prosecutions a bit, and peace out, man. I'm going to go fix my truck.